We're going to look from the book of Jeremiah and have a good Bible study and a good time in the Word of God today. I'll take it apart for you a little bit, and then we'll maybe get a little convicted of our own ways and our own attitudes in this day and age as we look forward to serving the Lord with greater strength to strength, from glory to glory, deeper and deeper. So Jeremiah chapter 12, a very interesting chapter. I read it a number of times. I don't remember preaching on it. I may have preached on part of it. I can't remember. Jeremiah chapter 12, verse 1, we'll start with that and kind of get the groundwork of it. It says, "You are always righteous, Lord, when I bring a case before you." Interesting line, because when you take it apart, that second line, "when I bring a case to you," is actually a legal term. So it's like when I bring a court case to you. If you really want to stretch it, it's almost, Jeremiah is almost bringing a lawsuit against God, but it's not quite there. But still, the interesting thing, it's a courtroom term he uses, okay? So he's bringing a courtroom, he's bringing a case. That's why it says, "when I bring a case before you." But the interesting thing about it is, as you put it together, it's like he's bringing a court case before God, but he knows he can't win. That's why he says, "You're always right, even though I'm going to bring a court case. I'm going to bring a case before you, but I know it doesn't do any good because you're always right anyway." That's what those two lines mean. So that's what he's doing. He's bringing a court case, so he's going to go ahead and do it, and speaks in legal terms, okay? And so here's Jeremiah's case, and here's his logic. And as you put this together, here's his concern. Why do the wicked prosper? Why do the treacherous and the wicked prosper and thrive? And you see, he's living in a time when he's being persecuted to some degree. And then he sees the wicked and the ones that are persecuting him, even some of his family. They seem to be, at least. They seem to be thriving and prospering. And so he comes before God, as you can see in the next verse, the end of verse 1, that he says, "I want to speak to you about your justice. Is this really just that the righteous are flourishing? Why does the way of the wicked prosper? Does that seem just to you?" So that's his case before God. And, why do all the faithless live at ease? So he's really concerned about it. He brings his case, and he sort of has a traditional thought on this, and I'm okay with it, but it just doesn't seem that way at the time. But his thought was, the righteous should thrive. It's the righteous that should be prospering. The righteous should receive good, and the wicked should receive bad. That's traditional thinking, Old Testament thinking, and just all the way across, and I'm okay with that. And that's the way he's thinking. He says, something's not just here. The righteous should be receiving good, which is him. He's considering himself. He's the prophet. And the wicked should be receiving bad. But I'm looking out there, it doesn't seem like they're getting any bad, and I'm getting persecuted. Is that just? Is that right? And that's his case before God. Now, God's going to answer him in a minute. We'll see his answer, but we'll lay it out first. And so the wicked are prospering. And then furthering his case, he says, "You know what? You are always on their lips, but you're never in their hearts." You're not in their heart. And so basically, if we put that, we can translate that. Basically, he's surrounded by hypocrites that say everything right, but God's not in their hearts. And so hypocrisy, if we just wanted to size it up there and put one word on it, hypocrisy is everywhere. And so here's his conclusion. This is Jeremiah's conclusion. He said, "They should be dragged off like sheep and slaughtered." That's what he says. They should, when you get down to verse 3, they should be dragged off like sheep and slaughtered. This is his case before God. And when you get down, now I think it's very interesting when you get down to verse 4, because verse 4 is a theological case or a theological statement. And when you read it, he talks about this: "How long will the land be parched and the fields be withered and the animals die?" Now, his theological premise of that is challenging to some of us, because he is deducting that. As you put that together, he is saying, the land is parched, it's dry, and the animals are dying. And the reason is because of the hypocrites, the hypocritical religion. The religious wicked, the wicked religious. He says it's because the religious people are hypocrites that the land is parched and the animals are dying. Now that might be challenging. What do you think of that? What's your deduction of that? Because I find, especially in the 1980s up into the 90s and like that, there were lots and lots of preachers who preached, San Francisco's going to fall into the ocean. And then they'd preach California's going to fall into the ocean because they're so wicked. And then they'd preach our whole nation's going to collapse because of the wicked in the United States and all the immorality. And that was very, very common preaching through those years. And so most Christians got it into their heads that, I'll pick this up. Most preachers got it into their heads that that's the way it should go. The wicked are prospering in our country. They're taking over. They're doing all kinds of immorality. America's going to go down. And that's what Christians said. And I think most of them are comfortable with it. But Jeremiah doesn't seem to agree. Jeremiah thinks the problem has always been that trouble happens to a nation when the people who call themselves by God's name do not serve the God. When they have him on their lips, but they don't have him in their hearts, hypocrisy is what causes trouble. Hypocrisy is what causes the land to be parched and the animals and the trouble that happens and famines and wars and just trouble. Try that on some religious person sometime when they say, why do we have so many, what do they say now? We got so many storms like today, and hurricanes are up, and floods are up, and they're always talking about the weather's going crazy, and then a lot of them deducted it's all that wickedness out there, all those wicked people. And try it on them. Say, well, you know what I think it is? I think it's your hypocrisy caused that hurricane. It's not the wicked people down in New Orleans. It's not the wicked that got the hurricane. The hurricane came because of hypocrisy. Because the religious people speak with their lips, but he's far away from them in their hearts. Try that on them and see how you'll end up being like Jeremiah, persecuted. No wonder he was persecuted. I tried that. I did that many times. I've done that many times. I think J.D. was with me, Pastor J.D. was with me on one of the occasions. Yeah, that was at seminary, we did that one. But I did this down in Tulsa. I did it a couple places to try it. It didn't go over well in Tulsa either. Both they had discussions on it of why the woman in the Bible with the issue. No, the woman bent over for 18 years. Remember that one? She's been over for 18 years, and Jesus calls her a daughter of Abraham. Says, is it right that this daughter of Abraham should be tricked by Satan and deceived by Satan and bent over by Satan? And you go, well, how can Satan be in the same sentence with daughter of Abraham? And you go, that isn't right. If she's a daughter of Abraham, how can Satan do this to her? And so they all, both in seminary, I did it in the seminary class, as I've told the story over the years. I know some of you haven't heard it, but it caused a riot. I mean, angry riots. The religious there, because they were all trying to analyze, and down in Tulsa too. And they were saying, well, why was that woman, why was she bent over for 18 years? And they all had their reasons. They all had, it was all the wickedness, They had all these, and they said, well, probably her grandmother played with the Ouija board, and they came up with stuff like that in the classroom. And we were sitting as students, see, and they let the students talk, and the teacher talked, and they were coming up with all kinds of ideas. And then at the end of the class, I said, I got an idea, and I hadn't spoken the whole time, and they'd kind of heard about me anyway, and I know they really didn't want me to speak, but I saved it the best till last, and I said, well, I got something to say. They're all right. What do you think it was? And they weren't very happy about it because the class was almost over. It was like 10 till 9, quarter till 9. They wanted to get out of there. And I brought it up, and I said, well, I don't think any of you have it right. I don't think it was any of those reasons. Well, smarty pants, why do you think? They didn't say smarty pants with their mouth, but they said it with their eyes, and their hands. What do you think it was? And I said, you just need to read your Bible and read down there. And Jesus goes down, and he talks about the woman, and he calls her, he says, you hypocrites. You hypocrites. I said, that's why she's bent over. You get hypocrisy in here and people are going to get slammed. They're going to get slammed. Hypocrisy opens the door to sickness and disease. And the worst part about it is she's a daughter of Abraham. And the worst part about it is it opens the door to sickness and disease. And the innocent are the ones that get sick. And they're trying to figure out this woman must be sick because she sinned. Or her grandmother sinned, or her mother, or her father. Somebody sinned, and she's got sin on her. That's why she's been over. I said, well, don't call her a daughter of Abraham then at the same time. If she's a sinner, then she ought to be a daughter of the devil, I think. But he said a daughter of Abraham bent over by Satan. I thought, that's not right. How'd that happen? So I said, it's hypocrisy that does it. Well, that started a riot because every one of them knew they were going back to churches full of hypocrites and sick people. And if I'm right, then there's something we can do about it. We can increase healing by decreasing hypocrisy. Because if hypocrisy is alive among us, no matter how many people get healed, somebody else is going to get sick. Because it opens the door to the devil. They didn't like that at all. They didn't like it in Tulsa either. I thought they would. I thought they'd go for it in Tulsa, but they didn't go for it in Tulsa either. So here, you got to think what you think about it. Because he's saying, no, the land is parched, animals are dying, bad things are happening because of the religious, wicked hypocrisy. So I taught it too. And if that's right, if Jeremiah's right, then only a revival will save us. Right? A revival, if we want to call it a revival of religion, I think some people, in the past, some people have called it that. I think Finney called it a revival of religion. Today, I don't like the term religion, but I know what he meant. And so, anyway, only a revival is going to save us. So, this is his case. Actually, we might get down to the very end of verse 4. It says, he will not see what happens to us. And the he there in my Bible is capitalized. But so it would be, God's not going to see. We're not worried about it because God doesn't see what we're doing. That would be that translation. But another translation made the he Jeremiah because they were saying Jeremiah's prophecies will not come true on us because he's prophesying you better straighten up. You better straighten up or bad things are going to happen. And they seem to be, he says this isn't right. It seems going too good for them and something needs to change. But either way you do it, it's an interesting line, okay? Prophecies won't happen to us. What you're prophesying won't happen to us. And I can feel that sometimes when I give out warnings about serving the Lord and staying true and walking this thing out, and if you don't, if you give up or you turn or whatever, it hadn't been a pretty picture for people. And I tell them, and sometimes I get the feeling people say, oh, nothing will happen to us. We're going to be the exception here. Not bad things, but you got to give it, sometimes you got to give it 10 years. You don't look like 1 year. Wait and see what happens in 10 years. And so that's been my experience. But anyway, that's what they were saying. All right. So Jeremiah brings his complaint, and it's not just a complaint. It's also technically called a lament. He's lamenting, if you know that word, what's happening. He's lamenting. So he's bringing a case before God, but he's also lamenting about how bad things are and how this isn't just. So it's a lament and a court case, okay? Then God answers, all right? God answers, and you get down to verse 5, and God answers. And very interesting what God says. If you have raced with men on foot and they have worn you out, how can you compete with horses? So today's sermon, I titled it, Running with Horses. Running with horses. And so what he basically comes to him, and after he does his lament and his complaint, God looks at it and he says, if you have raced with men and you're worn out, or if you are stumbling when you're safe, if you're falling apart when you're running against men and you're stumbling when everything's safe, how will you handle what's coming? So God is prophetically pronouncing to Jeremiah, the horses are coming. Wow. The horses are coming. Wow. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse before it gets better for you. And so I want to prepare my people to run with horses, not to be run over by horses. To run the race and keep on running, and you're going to have to not run easier, slower. You're going to have to run faster. I don't know if you know, but horses are faster than men. So he's telling them, if you're having trouble keeping up with men, how are you going to keep up when the horses come? You're going to be trampled underfoot. So Jeremiah thinks it's bad, and God's really saying, you haven't seen bad yet. Now, eventually, he's going to get around in the prophecy, and the things are going to happen to, the way justice is going to come. But this is what he's saying to Jeremiah. And he's concerned because Jeremiah's fallen apart before the real battles even happened. And so he says, I like this line, if you're stumbling when you are safe, how are you going to run with horses? How are you going to keep up? How will you handle what's coming? And so he prophesies the horses are coming, and greater challenges are coming to you than what you're getting now. There's a greater challenge. And you need to be prepared for it. God will prepare you for it. God will prepare Jeremiah for it. And actually, that's what he's doing right now, isn't he? He's revealing to him that, Jeremiah, you're not ready for what's coming if you're not handling what's happening. If you can't handle what's happening, you're not ready for what's coming. And so he says, what was that line? He said, if you stumble in a safe country, how will you manage in the thickets of Jordan? Along the Jordan River, there's lots of thickets and little trees and stuff. How will you manage what's the thickets of Jordan? So God's really appealing back, and this is a kind of lament of God, laments back. When you read this lament back from God, I wasn't going to mention this, I didn't think I'd have time, but I'm going to throw it in a little bit. When you read this, God then laments back to him. And you find out that what is hurting Jeremiah about the situation hurts God too. God's hurt about this too. God has feelings about this too. And it helps you understand the way God looks at it. It's not like God's looking at it and says, Jeremiah, come on, it's not that big a deal. God's upset about it too. He's upset and hurt the way the people are acting too. And that's his appeal back. He says, first of all, Jeremiah, you're stumbling when I'm trying to prepare you for even more challenge. But then he comes back and reveals to Jeremiah, I don't like this any more than you do, or maybe less than you do. I'm hurting more than you're hurting over what I see. And so it's just interesting as you read that to see how God talks about it. But we won't go that. There's too many scriptures here to go through them all because we want to get this other part done. But, I like that. If you're stumbling now when it is safe, how will you survive the horses? Because it sounds like they're coming, at least in Jeremiah's day. And for us, in reality, if you really think about it, and you need to, because this is what God's doing to Jeremiah. He's causing him to think a little bit. And when you think about it, along with Jeremiah, which we need to do a reality check, you realize we really have it pretty easy. I mean, most of us are pretty safe. We described to you, was it last week or whenever, and I'll keep occasionally mentioning to you that we are considering both Jews and Christians, first the Jews because we're involved with that, but that are in danger right now in certain parts of the world. They're not safe. There's a threat to their lives, and they want to escape where they live and get to Israel because they're not safe. And when we went to the different centers where people had arrived who weren't safe in their other country, and now they're in Israel, it's very interesting to get with them, and these are people that had to escape for their lives. And they came with nothing. They have nothing except what they're wearing, what they wore. You've heard it, just the clothes on your back. That's what these people had. They escaped with just the clothes on their back. That's all they had. And they have no home, no money, nothing. And so people have to help them. They need help to get situated in Israel. They're not safe. And it's hard to imagine living like they have lived in a land that's not safe. But more than that, Pastor J.D. gave me the other day, or showed me the other day, I guess it was a magazine or whatever, but it was showing how many countries in the world where Christians are being killed and the percentages of where's the worst. I can't remember which the worst was, but I read all the countries, and there's a lot of them. And Christians are being killed for singing the same songs we sing, for worshiping the way we worship. Some of them even don't, some of them are Catholic and other things, but some of them worship like we worship, and they're being killed for it. Imagine doing what we did and being afraid to go outside these doors because there might be somebody to kill you for what you did today and by coming here. You see, we've got it pretty safe, and we forget that. We have it pretty safe. We have it pretty easy. I mean, the fact, we sometimes forget what's happened to our country and how easy it's gotten. Because today you hear a lot about social media and Facebook and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. But we don't wake up to the fact and the reality that people have the time to be on there. It used to be people had to work. They worked. Now people have so easy, we have so much time that, the very fact that you find people spending 2, 3, 4 hours a day, 5 hours. I don't know what the average is. There's a number somewhere, but what the average person spends on that stuff. But I'm not putting down that stuff. I'm just saying, do you realize how easy we have it if you've got the time to sit around and read Facebook and stupid Instagram stuff, pictures and stuff, and you can look at what people had to eat and where they went? I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying, do you realize how easy you got it, that you've got the time to sit and look at that? How easy is that, just to sit and look at pictures? That's a pretty easy life. And then we're filled. How many television channels do you get? How many movies can you order in one day? How many do you watch in one day? We've got movies, we've got all the social media, we've got movies, we've got entertainment. Now, I don't know how it'll be today in this snowstorm stuff, but I know on Sundays, if we go out to eat, we got to stand in line. All the restaurants are packed. Saturday night, they're packed. In Lee Summit, I know at least. They're packed with people. You just go to a regular restaurant during time when everybody's eating. You walk in and find out how long's the wait. How long do I have to wait to get in? That's pretty easy. When you feel like people don't have any money and life is so hard, I can't tell it by the restaurant. I go in there after church and I see these big tables with all these people sitting at it, and a lot of them you could tell they're church folks because they're dressed up, and they're just eating away and ordering meals. They don't act like there's a shortage of money. Makes me wonder how much they gave in the offering. They got enough to go out and eat every Sunday like that. But, some of them haven't, their whole family's there. How did they afford to do that? Because I know sometimes that not everybody's making that much money, and some of them have to watch their money. But you couldn't tell it by going into a restaurant today. You can't tell it by going to the movies and seeing the big line of people buying, popcorn and candy and drinks, which is where your money really goes, isn't it? The tickets aren't that bad. It's when you go there to eat. And we got it pretty easy in this life when we've got the time for movies and people line up to get in, line up to get into a restaurant. And then to top it all off, I don't know if you know this or not, but phones are not cheap. Having a phone and a family of phones is not cheap. And yet, I could be wrong about this, but to my knowledge, I don't know anybody that doesn't have a phone. I could be wrong. I could meet somebody that doesn't have a phone. But to my knowledge, I can't think of anybody that doesn't have a phone. And their children. A lot of them. Depends on the age. I mean, just right here. How many people here have a phone? It's on you right now. Look, I mean, every hand in the place. Mine's not on me right now, but I'm not complaining to you. I got one too. And when they come out with a new one, I think, maybe I ought to get that new one, you know. No, then I keep my old one till it breaks or something, and then I get a new one. But I mean, phones aren't cheap. Do you know? Think of all. I was driving the other day. I drove downtown the other day, and I went to one of those intersections where the people hold up the card and say, "Give me money." And we went by this one woman, and I couldn't give her any money. You know why? She was on the phone. To me, I thought that's bad for business. Put your phone away if you want some money from somebody, because if you've got money for that phone, then you don't need money from me, especially if some of you are struggling to pay for your phone. You're going to give her money to pay for hers? Even she had a phone. She was dressed up like a really poor person. She looked the part, but the phone gave her away. Everybody here's got a phone. And then when you go to other countries, everybody in every other country's got a phone. You go to Poland, everybody's got a phone. I didn't see anybody without a phone. They could have had not one, but I didn't see anybody without one. Went to Israel, everybody there's got a phone. That's pretty easy. That makes life easy. I'm not complaining about it. I like the phones and all that. But think about it. Everybody has one. We're surrounded by all this easy life. And yet, people are unhappy. People are complaining. In this easy life, they complain. They're unhappy. And even in this easy life, people are giving up. I don't know what they're giving up on, but they're giving up. And I'm not saying that critical. I'm saying it's factual. People give up on life. People still commit suicide with their phone in their pocket. Got phones, got entertainment, got TV channels, and people want to give up on life because they think it's hard. People get despairing. And again, I'm not being critical. I'm saying this is where we are. This is a concern. Pastors ought to be concerned. Moms and dads and leaders ought to be concerned that we have life so easy. We're at restaurants and entertainment. We've got time to be on Facebook. We've got our phones. We've got so much, and we're so unhappy. And we're so dissatisfied. People are unhappy. They're depressed. This is the angriest I've ever seen people be in a generation as now. People are angry while they're on their phone or while they're on Facebook. People are angry. People are bitter. People are offended. They're offended. I don't know, maybe they want to be offended. I don't want to be offended. I don't like how offense feels, so I don't want to be offended. But people want to be offended. I grew up in the 70s and into the 80s when TV was meant to offend you. I mean, they were trying to offend you on purpose. Comedians were trying to be offensive on purpose. And we went through the 70s fully offended and didn't care. Well, that was kind of offensive. Yeah, I don't care. And those comedians would come on with offensive, and they'd come on with TV shows and change our society, and All in the Family came. Remember that? Old people remember that one. And, they were trying to change our world, pushing buttons. And that old guy on that show, he was offensive. But we didn't care. We just let it go. Today, now it's the other way. Then they were trying to offend people. Now everybody's afraid they're going to offend people. People are easily offended. And it's in the church too. You'd be shocked at how many people get offended over something. You finally have to come to the conclusion, right, Eric, Pastor Eric? We had this discussion. You can't make people happy in this world. They got everything to be happy about, and they're still not happy. And Eric said, no matter how much you do, you can't make them happy. You can't make them satisfied. This is a generation that never have enough. They're never loved enough. They don't have enough phones. They don't have enough entertainment. They don't have enough followers. They got to have more, more, more. And it's when you have that consuming attitude, it eats you up and you're unhappy. And then you want me and us and the church and your friends and your family. You expect more out of us. And you get offended because you don't get more. We didn't give you what you wanted. So now you're mad at me. Now you're mad at us. Now you're mad at them. And that's the culture we live in. Now, the reason we're bringing that up, it is true, but the reason we're bringing it up as believers is where we have also as believers, where we've gone. Because here's what God's saying to us, the same thing. If you're stumbling now with all that around you, if you're stumbling along in life when you're safe, how would you make it if anything changed? If right now you can't keep up, if right now you can't run the race with men, how are you going to run with horses? How are you going to make it if the race picks up? How are you going to make it if something changes in the world? What if a war breaks out? What if the economy doesn't stay? Whatever. God prepares his people for everything. And that's why I'm saying, I'm just saying to you personally now, if you're unhappy and dissatisfied now, you better pray nothing gets worse. You better hope the devil doesn't release just one more demon, because people are barely making it on the demons now. You better hope none others show up, because you're not hardly making it with the demons now. When it's safe and it's easy and we got church and we got family, we got people that love us. That's the hard part about it. You know, there's people here that really do care about you. And we forget that sometimes. Because I know there's people here who love and care about other people, and they pray for other people. And they want other people to do well, and yet those people that they care about are unhappy and bitter. Going, just upset. And so God says, let me tell you something to Jeremiah. He said, let me tell you something, Jeremiah. You better get it together, because it's going to get harder. So persecution on him was going to increase. And he wasn't ready for it. If you're complaining now, how are you going to handle what's coming? I believe we can look, I'm not prophesying this or anything, but I believe we can look and feel, as I have said before, the world changing. Europe is changing, Russia is changing, countries are changing, governments are changing, and some of those countries are starting to want more too. You see, with phones and cable and all that stuff, they've been able to get a good look at what we have. And they don't like it. Some of them want it. And are trying to figure out how to get it. If the horses are running, then the horses are coming. And you need to be ready. So I just want you to consider that. How dissatisfied are you when you're safe? Something wrong with that. When you're safe and you've got a home and we got a new home or whatever, you may not have the best job, but you better thank the Lord you've got a job. Because look at what it gets you. You get to go fatten yourself in a restaurant. Those people that are living in an unsafe land can't even go outside. Some of them, Kathy knows this, some of them have to stay indoors down in basements hiding day and night. They can't even go outside. When you walk out, you're going to complain because it's cold and the snow blew in your face. You poor thing. But we are in a complaining society. Everybody complains. Everybody's unhappy. You know, I don't want to say this really as a, prophesying to you or being extra spiritual. I'm just being plain talk. Even as a father would talk, you just know that sometimes you think, the best thing for us in the spirit would be for something to go wrong. For Christians to get the pudding scared out of them. Not the rest of the world, but the hypocrites. Those people that have it so good in God and all they do is complain and cause trouble. Isn't it sad that it's like a teenager going rebellious and you think the only thing that's going to help them is a night in jail. Next time you go to jail, I'm not getting you out. That's the best, you think that's the best thing that could happen to you is get arrested. Isn't that right? Sometimes you meet people like that and say, I'm going to thank the Lord if you get arrested because I can't get you to change. You're not going anywhere unless a catastrophe happens. Unless something really goes wrong, you're not going to appreciate what you have. And so you, as a father or a pastor or a leader, you see that, you go like, man, I don't want that to happen. But really, that'd be the best thing for them, And that's kind of where we are in our country, and especially in our Christianity. We're so spoiled and so unhappy, and we have so much. Jesus said it too in his day. He said it in his own way. God said it to Jeremiah, but Jesus said it too. Jesus said this, for if people, I like this a lot. I really like this scripture a lot. There's so much insight into it. Jesus said, for if people do these things when the tree is green, what will happen when it is dry? Now, of course, the crucifixion's about to happen and all that. But think about that. If people are this angry when it's green and shoot people and kill people and go on there and malign people and slander people, ruin people's reputations when it is green, what kind of people would they become if it gets dry? If it gets parched? If they lose some of the stuff they have or the world changes, what kind of people? These would be angry people that I don't feel safe around them now. Because you never know what they'll say about you or do for you, to you. I don't feel safe around people now. What would they become if things ever got really hard? They might turn violent, riots, steal, kill, and destroy. Because if they'll do this when it's safe, what will they do if things change? And you yourself, you're maybe not one of those people, I hope, but you yourself, if you're having trouble keeping up now, what will you do when the horses come? When the race picks up and the pace goes faster? If you're stumbling now, what will you do then? How are you going to make it if the race picks up? And for me, of course, I hope it does. I hope it does. Whatever it takes, Lord, pick up the pace, pick up the race. Let's get going with this thing. I don't mind at all thinking about closing this chapter out and having a new heaven and a new earth where righteousness reigns and death and tears are no more. You don't have to be very spiritual to say, that's better, isn't it? I think that's better if I can just not be afraid of it. I think it's better. So I want to get this thing going. Jesus said, how I wish, is already kindled. Get going. But if you're not making it now, how will you make it if anything changes? We got it pretty easy. If you've got time to go on Instagram today and spend a few hours on the internet, you're a sissy. You need to get up and do something. Go chop some wood or something, just to chop it, or go shovel snow, the whole driveway and the sidewalk. They used to make me shovel. They didn't ask me to shovel, and they didn't ask me to mow the lawn. I had to do it. You go do it. Do something. Don't sit and look at pictures all day. It's just making you softer and whinier. Do something with your life. There's a whole adventure in Jesus, and Jesus tells us we need to do the works of God. Greater works shall you do. Well, not while you're on that internet. You're not going to be doing them. If you can do greater works on the internet, you are gifted. Good for you. If you can make a difference in somebody's life by sending them pictures, then do it. But most of us don't. Most of us just get lazy and addicted. Lazy and addicted. I know I don't do that stuff. But we admit it. Kathy and I, we're addicted to our phones. If we go anywhere without our phones, it's like we're not wearing pants. Feels like there's something wrong. I don't have any pants on, and I don't have a phone. My phone's in my pants. I admit it. I didn't want to get one. They told me I need one. Now I'm addicted to it. But I don't do all that other stuff. I just have it with me. I look at the news, basically, get messages. So I want you to take this to heart. We'll finish up and get out in the weather. And I've never ended this early, but it's probably I never got it that early before. But it'll give you time to brush the snow off and enjoy the drive. You won't be in such a hurry. But I want you to take it to heart, these words. And think about your lives and think about how dissatisfied you are surrounded with so much. We have it the easiest in the world. And there's a whole bunch of other people believing in the same Jesus as we do that really, really have it tough. And, I'm not saying we shouldn't enjoy our prosperity and the gift of God. Thank God for it. I don't want to lose it either. But I do want to understand it. And I do want to appreciate it. And I do want to have a heart of thanksgiving for my easy life. If you got an easy life, thank God for it. Don't start complaining and causing trouble in other people's lives. Come on, do me a favor. Make my life easier. Don't make it harder. Make my life fun. I won't mind. And you can do that for other people too. I'm here to make your life better. You take that attitude with you today. Everybody that gets around me, I'm here to make your life better. And you go make people's lives better. And you can't do that by being upset, bitter, and angry over nothing when you're a blessed, safe person. Plenty. You might want more, but thank God you've got plenty now. Most everybody does. There's some, I understand, some are struggling. I understand that. But thank God for the ones that have plenty and are satisfied and thankful.